your Lexus Birmingham Open champion.
Game sediment.
Excellence
Eala
from Alex
to set the
Eala.
5-7,
The
6-3,
number one
7-5.
seed, world number 37, is your Lexus Birmingham Open champion.
I'm really happy. I felt good.
Alex Eala is standing inside the Edgbaston Priory Club in Birmingham, England, and for the moment, time has hit the pause button. Rain has forced play to stop in her semifinal against Rebecca Masarova, with Alex Eala leading 3-2 in the deciding third set. The umbrellas are out, the court is empty, and the tension is hanging over Birmingham like a stubborn cloud that refuses to leave. And here's the remarkable part. From the very first round of this tournament, Alex Eala has looked completely unfazed. 3 straight victories. Not a single set dropped, not one panic-filled service game, not one visible wobble. And she is doing all of this on grass, a surface she had barely touched less than a week earlier. Now she sits just 1 victory away from a Birmingham final.
Sensation, Alex Eala at kanyang partner na si Rebecca Masarova abay na-eliminate kaagad sa opening round pa lamang ng Birmingham.
She is the tournament's #1 seed. She is 21 years old, and while plenty of players spend entire careers trying to learn how to stay calm under pressure, Alex Eala has been treating high-pressure moments like their routine Tuesday afternoon errands. Nike has been watching every point, not casually, not from a distance, closely. And according to reports, conversations happening inside Nike about the next phase of Alex Eala's commercial future are becoming increasingly significant. That is what this story is really about. Every major development in her rise, whether it happens on the court or inside boardrooms, continues to point in the same direction. So if you have been following Alex Eala before the rest of the world fully catches on, now might be a good time to stay locked in. Because the gap between promising player and global phenomenon appears to be shrinking by the week. To understand what Nike sees, you have to stop looking at the last 12 months as a tennis journey and start looking at them as a masterclass in brand building. And strangely enough, it all started with a flower. For Alex Eala's Wimbledon debut in 2025, Nike created a custom Sampaguita hair tie. Not something available in stores, not part of a retail collection, not hidden inside a limited release drop. One athlete, one design, one story. The Sampaguita, the national flower of the Philippines, became a symbol attached directly to Alex Eala's biggest stage at the time. For most players, a debut outfit is just another piece of apparel. For Nike, this looked more like the opening chapter of a much larger project. Then the story expanded. In August 2025, Alex Eala appeared on the cover of Vogue Philippines wearing a Nike-designed Sampaguita collection created alongside Manila-based artist Georgina Camus. Then came another signal. In February 2026, Alex Eala was invited to Nike's global headquarters in Beaverton, Oregon. Nike didn't simply host the visit, they celebrated it publicly. Their Philippines account posted in Filipino, "Salamat sa pagbisita," thanking her for visiting. Individually, each moment might seem small. Together?
Alex, hearty congratulations. I just want to read out a few names. Maud Watson, who we've just mentioned, of course. Billie Jean King, Martina Navratilova, Maria Sharapova, Petra Kvitova. Some of the names of the women who have their names etched in history as raising that ball. And now another Alexandra Eala. How does that sound?
It sounds really beautiful, of course. All those names that you've mentioned are tennis greats. And I'm so honored to be lifting this trophy today, but lifting this trophy does not mean that I will be among the greats yet. So I'm motivated to keep working, and I'm grateful for the part that this trophy has played in my journey. I'd also like to thank Nicola for this kind words, and of course congratulate you for an amazing week. And it's one of those days I wish we could both win, and of course this match was incredible. I think it was anyone's game, so congratulations.
They form a very different picture. Every move appears deliberate. Every step appears carefully placed. And Birmingham feels like the moment all of those pieces are beginning to connect. Because here is the reality that much of the mainstream tennis conversation still seems reluctant to say out loud. Alex Eala has become one of the most commercially important players in women's tennis before winning a single WTA title. Think about that for a second. Most athletes build commercial power after the trophies arrive. Alex Eala's commercial power started arriving before the trophy cabinet had a chance to catch up. Gigi Samon, Sky Sports' lead tennis presenter, addressed this publicly during an industry event in London. I would say in terms of her appeal, the crowds that follow her, she might already be the biggest star. That statement was not presented as hype. It was presented as observation. Then she went even further. Speaking about Alex Eala's matches in Dubai during 2026, when Alex Eala was still ranked outside the world's top 40, Samon described the atmosphere in extraordinary terms. It was like Taylor Swift was playing. People were screaming. Pause there for a moment. Taylor Swift comparisons are not usually thrown around at tennis events, especially not at tournaments featuring players who had not yet cracked the top 30. That is not normal. That is not typical fan interest. That is a market behaving as though it already knows something the rankings have not yet reflected. And that disconnect is exactly what makes Alex Eala such a fascinating case study. The rankings tell one story, the crowds tell another, the sponsorship conversations tell another, the social media engagement tells another. And increasingly, those stories are all pointing in the same direction. That is why the gestures from Nike have continued growing larger. Industry reporting from Tennis 365 has indicated that major sponsorship opportunities connected to Alex Eala are being discussed in the months ahead. The conversations are no longer about potential. They are increasingly about scale. The Sampaguita hair tie may have been the opening move. What comes next could be significantly bigger. Because if you want to understand how Nike operates, you have to understand that giant brands rarely spend resources without purpose. The hair tie was never just a hair tie. It was a signal, a message, a declaration of intent. When a company as disciplined as Nike creates a one-of-one culturally meaningful piece for a player ranked outside the top 50, they are not simply being generous. They are building mythology. They are building identity. They are building emotional connection. And the choice of flower was no accident. The Sampaguita blooms at night. It carries deep cultural meaning throughout the Philippines. It appears in ceremonies, traditions, and generations of family history. For countless Filipinos, it represents far more than decoration. Nike could have selected any design. They could have chosen a modern logo variation. They could have produced a generic Wimbledon-themed accessory. Instead, they chose something rooted in heritage, something personal, something unmistakably Filipino. For brand analysts watching from the outside, the message was impossible to miss. This was not a standard endorsement strategy.
What was it like designing a kit with Nike that included the national flower of the Philippines? That's so cool.
That was actually a surprise for me. My agent sent me over the presentation of this Sampaguita project that Nike had made. It was like 2 nights before my match at Wimbledon. It was so beautiful. Like the message behind it was great. I felt that it fit me so much. And I was so lucky that I got to play on center. The stars aligned for me. I mean, would have aligned even more if I'd won. But I was just so happy to be there. And I was like wearing my little flower. Oh my gosh, it was insane.
This was a long-term cultural investment, a project designed not only to elevate an athlete, but to connect that athlete to an entire audience. Then came another moment that reinforced the pattern. Monday, February 23rd, 2026. Nike Philippines posts a photo from the company's world headquarters in Beaverton, Oregon. And suddenly the story that began with a flower looked even bigger than anyone originally imagined. Alex Eala is inside the building, smiling for the cameras, surrounded by Nike gear, looking completely at home in an environment usually reserved for the biggest names in global sports. Then comes the caption, "Salamat sa pagbisita." Simple, just 3 words. But those 3 words traveled a very long way. The post exploded across Filipino communities around the world, generating hundreds of thousands of engagements from fans spread across Manila, Dubai, London, North America, and beyond. Suddenly, one visit to Nike headquarters was no longer just a corporate photo opportunity. It had become an event. Now imagine being inside Nike's global marketing department reviewing those numbers. Imagine seeing engagement reports arrive from multiple continents. Imagine seeing fans react to a gear fitting, a headquarters visit, and a social media post with the kind of excitement normally associated with a major championship victory. That is when executives stop asking whether an athlete is important. They start asking how big the opportunity can become. The math becomes surprisingly simple, and then Birmingham happened. On June 2nd, Alex Eala stepped onto center court against Priscilla Hahn and immediately got to work. Actually, got to work might be putting it politely. This looked more like a tennis masterclass with a strict time limit. The opening set lasted approximately 22 minutes. 22! Before some spectators had fully settled into their seats, Alex Eala had already claimed the set 6-love. The second followed at 6-2. Officially, it was a match. Unofficially, it felt more like a demonstration of who was controlling every important moment on the court. Then came June 4th. Elena Pridankina pushed much harder. For one of the first times during the week, Alex Eala found herself under genuine pressure. She trailed 2-5 in the second set. Momentum appeared to be shifting. The crowd sensed it. Her opponent sensed it. This is usually where uncertainty creeps in. This is where players begin negotiating with their doubts, not Alex Eala. She simply decided the comeback would end immediately. 5 consecutive games later, the match was over. Final score, 6-2, 7-5. The scoreboard reflected a straight sets victory. What it failed to capture was the composure behind it. The ability to stare at a 2-5 deficit and respond with 5 straight games requires more than talent. It requires belief. It requires discipline. And perhaps most importantly, it requires refusing to panic when the script suddenly changes. Then came June 5th. Mananchaya Sawankao stood across the net in the quarterfinals. 71 total points were played. Alex Eala collected most of them. The final score read 6-3, 6-2. Another win. Another straight set performance. Another statement. 3 matches. 0 sets lost. A semifinal spot secured. And suddenly the question was no longer whether Alex Eala could play on grass. The question was how quickly she was learning to dominate on it. This is the part many people miss when discussing why major brands become interested. Nike scouts do not watch matches the same way fans do. Fans often watch the score. Scouts watch the details. They watch body language. They watch recovery after mistakes. They watch how an athlete reacts when momentum turns ugly. They watch whether a player can absorb pressure without letting everyone in the stadium see it. And what Alex Eala demonstrated throughout Birmingham was exactly the kind of trait that translates beyond rankings. The wins matter. How she wins matters even more. Anyone can look impressive when leading. The truly valuable players are the ones who remain composed when everything briefly stops going their way. Alex Eala keeps showing that ability. For years, she has been told, directly or indirectly, that she is not quite there yet. Not high enough in the rankings. Not experienced enough. Not proven enough. Not established enough. And every time the tennis world creates another door, she seems to walk through it anyway and pull up a chair at the table. The fans noticed long before everyone else did. That became impossible to ignore in Birmingham. Filipino supporters traveled to the Edgbaston Priory Club for a WTA 125 event. Read that sentence again. Not a Grand Slam. Not Wimbledon. Not the US Open. Not a WTA 1000. A WTA 125 tournament. And yet the atmosphere sounded like something much bigger. Flags appeared. Cheers echoed around the grounds. Players competing on neighboring courts could hear the noise. That does not happen by accident. That does not happen because of one good week. That kind of support is built over years. Years of people believing before the rankings gave them permission to believe. In many ways, Birmingham felt like a message directed toward those supporters. You were never wrong about her. The rest of the tennis world simply needed more evidence. Now that evidence keeps arriving every week, and that crowd? That crowd is not merely enthusiasm. That crowd represents something larger. It represents attention. It represents influence. It represents market value. And brands understand that better than anyone, which is why comments from respected voices matter so much. When Sky Sports presenter Gigi Salmon describes Alex Eala's crowds as resembling a pop concert atmosphere, the conversation changes. It is no longer fans making emotional claims. It becomes an observation supported by people with no personal stake in the story. Then comes Kim Clijsters. And when Kim Clijsters speaks, tennis listens. 4 Grand Slam singles titles, multiple world #1 rankings. A historic comeback that resulted in another Australian Open title after becoming a mother. She understands greatness because she has lived it. She understands pressure because she has carried it. Most importantly, she understands what happens when public attention grows faster than a player's career timeline. Clijsters is Belgian. She has no national connection to Alex Eala, no reason to exaggerate, no reason to promote a narrative, which is why her words landed with so much force when she appeared on the Served with Andy Roddick podcast. She has to deal with this life of being like Michael Jordan in the Philippines. Not a future star, not a promising player, not a rising prospect. Michael Jordan. That is the comparison she chose. The most recognizable sporting icon of the modern era. The benchmark for cultural influence. The standard by which sporting fame is measured. And then Clijsters delivered what may have been the most important part of her assessment. Eala needs to be protected like a big star. That statement carries enormous weight, because champions understand something casual observers often miss. The moment a player's popularity starts growing faster than their ranking, everything changes. Expectations change. Media attention changes. Commercial opportunities multiply. Demands increase. The machine around that athlete becomes bigger, faster, and more powerful. And what Kim Clijsters was really saying is that Alex Eala has already entered that phase. Whether the rankings fully reflect it yet or not, Nike heard that podcast. You can be absolutely certain of that. Nike saw the clips. Nike saw the headlines. Nike saw one of the most respected champions of the modern era publicly compare Alex Eala's cultural impact to Michael Jordan's influence in sports. And Nike did not need convincing. By that point, they had already watched the crowds. They had already seen the engagement numbers. They had already welcomed Alex Eala into their global headquarters in Beaverton, Oregon, where she tested equipment, explored development labs, and spent time inside the ecosystem reserved for athletes viewed as long-term investments. So when Kim Clijsters says, "Protect her like a big star," she is not introducing Nike to an idea. She is confirming something they already believe. Because the reality surrounding Alex Eala has become impossible to ignore. The ranking tells one story. The market tells another. And increasingly, the market is speaking much louder. That is why this story stretches far beyond Birmingham. The semifinal, the tournament, the grass court run. Those are important chapters, but they are not the entire book. The bigger story involves geography, economics, culture, and a race that every major sports company is currently running. Because Southeast Asia has quietly become one of the most important growth markets in global sports. More than 700 million people, rapidly expanding middle classes, a generation consuming sports primarily through digital platforms, millions of young fans still deciding which athletes, teams, and brands will become part of their identities. In business terms, that represents opportunity. In marketing terms, it represents a gold rush. Nike knows it. Adidas knows it. Every major sportswear company knows it. The competition is no longer just about selling shoes. It is about winning emotional loyalty before those loyalties become permanent. And in that environment, Alex Eala occupies an incredibly unique position. She is not simply a successful Filipino tennis player. She is something much rarer. She is a connection point, a bridge, a figure capable of creating emotional investment across an entire region. That is enormously valuable. When fans book international flights to attend a WTA 125 event in Birmingham, England, something unusual is happening. Most players struggle to attract that level of commitment for Grand Slams. Yet Alex Eala supporters crossed borders and oceans for a tournament that casual tennis fans barely knew was taking place. That goes beyond support. That goes beyond popularity. That is loyalty in its purest form. Marketing departments spend years trying to build that kind of connection. They hire consultants. They commission studies. They launch campaigns worth millions. And even then, many never achieve what Alex Eala has built organically through her relationship with fans. Which brings us to the road ahead. And the schedule ahead is impossible to ignore. After Birmingham comes the Bad Homburg Open. The tournament runs from June 21st through June 27th, serving as one of the final major grass court events before Wimbledon. Alex Eala already holds a confirmed wildcard. That alone would make the tournament significant, but reports suggesting a potential doubles partnership with Venus Williams have added an entirely different layer of intrigue. Think about that for a moment. One of the most recognizable figures in tennis history potentially sharing a court with one of the sport's fastest rising names. If that partnership happens, it will not remain a tennis story. It becomes international news. Sports media will cover it. Mainstream media will cover it. Social media will turn it into a global conversation. And brands understand exactly what that kind of visibility can mean. Then comes Wimbledon, the biggest stage in tennis. The tournament every player dreams about. Alex Eala enters her second Wimbledon main draw appearance carrying something she did not possess a year earlier. Momentum, confidence, experience, and perhaps most importantly, genuine grass court form built through victories rather than projections. Every win in Birmingham has strengthened that foundation. Every difficult moment navigated successfully has added another layer of belief. Then comes another major checkpoint, the US Open, late August, New York. One of the largest sporting stages in the world. Already, Alex Eala's name is appearing more frequently in tournament discussions, media conversations, and promotional contexts. The trajectory is becoming increasingly difficult to miss. And according to industry reports, the sponsorship conversations happening behind the scenes are growing accordingly. Not small opportunities, not exploratory talks, substantial discussions, the kind that can redefine an athlete's commercial profile, which makes what happened before Birmingham even more impressive. Because only 11 days earlier, Alex Eala was walking off a clay court in Paris after a difficult first-round defeat at Roland Garros. She lost 4-6, 2-6 to American Iva Jovic, a talented player, a seeded player, and notably, someone Alex Eala has publicly described as a close friend. It marked her second consecutive first-round Grand Slam exit of the season. For many athletes, that would trigger weeks of analysis, endless explanations, long statements about lessons learned, carefully crafted social media reflections. Instead, Alex Eala quietly moved on. No dramatic declarations, no emotional public campaign, no attempt to turn disappointment into a headline. 6 days later, she arrived in Birmingham and opened her first grass court match by winning the opening set 6-love in approximately 22 minutes. That is not denial. That is professionalism. That is the mindset of someone who refuses to live in yesterday's result. And perhaps the clearest explanation came from Alex Eala herself. Speaking to Tennis 365 before this run began, she explained her approach with remarkable simplicity. My day-to-day life is the same. I have the same work ethic and the same attention to detail. Simple words. But championship habits are often described that way. Not through grand speeches, through consistency, through routine, through showing up again and again when nobody is watching. The same attitude appeared during her visit to Nike headquarters. At one point, a reporter asked whether she had become the next Manny Pacquiao, the most iconic figure in the modern Philippine sports. Many athletes would have embraced the comparison. Many would have leaned into the narrative. Alex Eala responded in Tagalog, "Nasa ibang level na siya. Sa tingin ko, medyo malayo pia ako." He is on another level. I think I am still far from there. That answer matters. Not because it sounds humble, because it sounds genuine. There is no performance in it, no calculation, no branding strategy, just honesty. And that honesty may be one of the reasons fans connect with her so deeply. A player who answers questions about greatness without chasing the spotlight. A player who responds to setbacks with work instead of speeches. A player who loses in Paris and starts handing out 6-love sets in Birmingham a few days later. That player does not need constant reminders of who she is. She already knows. And when you step back and look at the entire journey, the pattern becomes impossible to miss. It started with a flower. A one-of-one Sampaguita hair tie that nobody else would ever own. Then came the Vogue Philippines cover. Then came the Nike Design Collection. Then came the visit to World Headquarters in Beaverton. Then came a social media caption written in Filipino. Then came crowds in Birmingham, England, cheering for a WTA 125 semifinalist with the energy usually reserved for Wimbledon champions. Then came Kim Clijsters, a Hall of Fame champion, a former world #1, a player who has seen greatness from the inside. And when she looked at Alex Eala's situation, the comparison she reached for was not another prospect, not another young player, not another rising star. It was Michael Jordan. And that may tell you everything you need to know about where this story is heading next. And perhaps the most remarkable part of this entire story is that none of these observations are coming exclusively from Filipino fans anymore. They are coming from respected voices inside the sport itself. Think about what has happened over the last 12 months. A custom Sampaguita hair tie created exclusively for Alex Eala. A Vogue Philippines cover built around a Nike Design Collection. An invitation to Nike's global headquarters in Beaverton, packed crowds following her across continents, industry conversations about major sponsorship deals, Kim Clijsters comparing the scale of her cultural presence to Michael Jordan, and then Gigi Salmon, one of the most respected broadcasters in tennis, effectively setting aside every instinct toward cautious neutrality and saying what many people in the sport have quietly been thinking for months, that Alex Eala may already be the biggest star in terms of fan appeal and crowd energy. Not someday, not eventually. Right now, the exact contract value, whatever number eventually appears in headlines, will become public sooner or later. Deals of this magnitude do not stay hidden forever. Companies like Nike do not spend years constructing cultural campaigns, building athlete narratives, and investing in global visibility only to keep the final chapter locked inside a filing cabinet. Eventually, the announcement comes. Eventually, the numbers arrive. Eventually, everyone sees what has been building behind the scenes. But honestly, the most interesting part may not be the number itself. The most interesting part is the pattern. A one-of-one Sampaguita hair tie, a Vogue cover, a headquarters visit, a growing international fan movement, a Birmingham run that continues to attract attention far beyond the rankings, each step larger than the one before, each chapter building naturally into the next, each signal pointing in exactly the same direction. Alex Eala did not become this story by accident. She built it point by point, match by match, set by set, through discipline, consistency, resilience, and a level of composure that keeps showing up whenever the pressure rises. And while we're talking about sponsorships, headlines, and future announcements, Alex Eala is still doing the thing that created all of this in the first place. Playing tennis, competing, winning, improving. And at this very moment, rain delay or not, she is still waiting for the chance to walk back onto that Birmingham court and prove it one more time. So now the question goes to you. When Nike finally reveals the full scope of what they are building around Alex Eala, whether that moment comes at Wimbledon, the US Open, or somewhere completely unexpected, what do you think that partnership should actually look like? And just as importantly, which brand has the most to lose if they are not sitting at the table when that announcement drops? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you've been following Alex Eala's journey through Birmingham, Bad Homburg, Wimbledon, and everything that comes next, make sure you subscribe right now, because this story is moving fast, and you do not want to be the person who discovers it after the rest of the world has already caught up.